for you, what were some of the things that helped your relationship with food so much from where it was?
So I lived in the land of deprivation. I was floored when I was told by my coach that I needed to eat more. I was like, what do you mean? Like, my doctor tells me I need to stop eating so much. But it changed once I started seeing the difference in the mirror. So probably a few months in, when I started to see that my clothes were fitting a little bit differently, people were telling me I looked different, I looked happier, I looked healthier. I think that's kind of when it all started to click into place that this wasn't going to be the same experience as Weight Watchers. I think the real defining moment was when my daughter's narrative around food changed.
Whoa, I didn't even know this. What's going, guys? Welcome back to a brand new episode of Dieting from the Inside Out. If you're new around here, welcome to the show. My name is Jared Hamilton and I'm your host. And in today's episode, I am going to interview a very, very special individual named Leslie, because Leslie has done pretty well the one thing that most of you listening want to do, which is hop on a program, follow it fully, get results, and then keep those results. Here's the cool thing. In Leslie's case, Leslie was a client of ours, and Leslie not only went through our program and then was super successful during the program at her time here, but then continued on to be even more successful and kept making progress after the program was over, which is the bread and butter of how this works. Because I have a lot of people ask me, they go, well, Jared, what's the success rate of people after the program? How do people do once coaching is over? How do they do? And the thing is, this is the cool part. When I bring on people who have gone through the program and they're still crushing it, they are still doing well. And in cases like Leslie's, has continued to make progress, because I think this is important for a couple things. Number one, to show you that what I teach works, to show you that the things that I'm showing you here isn't just something to get you results now, but you're going to fall off later. These are things that you can do to keep going on forever and for years at a time after things are over. This way, that you can have results that never leave. And it also is just more evidence to show that what I do works, and how the way I approach fat loss in inner work in this entire game of transformation is very different. So in this episode with Leslie, like I said, she was a client of ours a couple years ago. Ironically, she was a scholarship winner. I totally forgot about that until we were in the middle of our conversation. But Leslie actually won one of our scholarships that we ran a couple years ago. So she got a full ride of coaching for free, but then treated it like she paid for it. And she has been so successful in the program and then continued on. And she's in situations a lot of you are going through. She is a mom. She works a lot. She has a lot of things going on in her life. She's super busy, but she also knew that this is important, in that if she didn't fix these things with her, she wasn't going to be around forever for her daughter. And then her daughter was going to continue on the path that she was on. And she said, nope, that's not happening here. And so Leslie took control of her life, which inadvertently took control of the entire dynamic in the household and her daughter's life. So it was an amazing episode. It was an amazing conversation. So I will shut up now and get her on the line, and I'll talk to you in just a second. Again, I appreciate you doing this, because one of the things I like to do with people is this concept of like what I call it, like life after coaching, because in the coaching space, it's so common for someone to do coaching with someone like us, and then after their bout of coaching is over, they gain all their weight back. And it's versus what I like to talk about is I want us to be someone's last coaching experience where like, yep, all the problems got solved and they continue to be successful on their own. And that's exactly what you've done over the last, I don't know, a couple years, I guess. I don't even know timeline wise, but, and I just want to talk about like what you've been doing, why that worked, what some of the stuff you're doing, like as far as like the mental work you're doing and things like that. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So talk a little bit about kind of what you've been like your journey, like with when you were coaching and then kind of coming off coaching. Talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah. So coming into coaching, I won a scholarship with Coach Steven. I really didn't know what to expect because I had done everything, Weight Watchers, Noom, like you name it. I probably tried it at some point. And nothing really seemed to have stuck, but being able to kind of sit down and talk and, with somebody and kind of work with somebody about the root of, kind of why things were going the way they were going and kind of with my relationship with food really kind of helped me change my mindset. And it gave me something to journal about. It gave me something to talk to my counselor about. So with working with Coach Steven, as well as kind of following the online academy, and then working with my counselor and my doctor, really kind of just helped me get everything, like all of the puzzle pieces kind of came together for me. So I was really able to kind of apply what was being taught to me by my coach to make it all work together.
Oh, talk about it takes a village. I love that.
Yes. And it took finding the right doctor, because I had a struggle of finding a doctor that really, with my diabetes, really kind of support me instead of saying, oh, you're fat, that's why things are the way they are. Really kind of sitting down with me and reinforcing what my coach was telling me to kind of help me find what worked best for me.
I love that. Yeah. I love that so much. Where did things start to change with like your relationship with food? Because I think a lot of people, like when they approach their relationship with food, it's just like more restriction and more deprivation and more whatever, and it ends up causing more problems. So for you, what were some of the things that helped your relationship with food so much from where it was?
So I lived in the land of deprivation. I was floored when I was told by my coach that I needed to eat more. I was like, what do you mean? Like, my doctor tells me I need to stop eating so much. But it changed once I started seeing the difference in the mirror. So probably a few months in, when I started to see that my clothes were fitting a little bit differently, people were telling me I looked different, I looked happier, I looked healthier. I think that's kind of when it all started to click into place that this wasn't going to be the same experience as Weight Watchers. I think the real defining moment was when my daughter's narrative around food changed.
Whoa, I didn't even know this.
Oh, yeah. So for the longest time, it was, no, you can't have that because that's not good for you to eat, or that's not healthy. And when she started hearing me say, well, what's the serving size on that? Or what are some of the other things we've already had today? Maybe it's okay for a treat. That, and she started imitating that, and hearing her bring us things and say, what's the serving size on this? Is this okay? I've already had a yogurt this morning, or I had, this. Do you think it would be okay to have this? Hearing her say that and knowing that she was watching me really kind of drove home that what I'm doing is not only good for me, but it's kind of breaking that cycle of that's a bad food, you can't have that, more as let's just make sure we're having a good balance of things.
I was literally on a call right before we hopped on, and we were talking about this. It was a lady applying for coaching, and one of the big reasons she mentioned that was because her daughter is already like having some disordered patterns around food. And this is when a lot of times, depending on how old the kid is when like, kids are starting to sneak away food, or they're starting to binge themselves, or they're starting to live deprived. And then when they're 15, 16, 17, 18, now is when more bigger issues come out. So the fact that you're leading from the front and showing her, that's the secret though, is there's a lot of parents who have they're all sorts of fucked up around food, but then they're trying to teach their kids what they don't know themselves. And there's always going to be a misalignment. Whereas as a parent, especially parents listening to this, if you just get you good, you naturally teach, you naturally show the example, and your kids just do what you do. And I think that's incredible.
It's amazing to see like what she's just observed and kind of applied to herself because she saw us doing it. And I think that's really cool. She's 7 now, and she'll come up to me and be like, it has this much protein in that. Is this good? And it's really cool to kind of hear a 7-year-old ask about protein, because that's not something I would have ever thought about at 7,
Sure. Well, and I'm sure it tees up a lot of really good, more contextual based conversations, whereas diet culture is like, that's bad, that's good. You're not hungry, go drink water, you're just whatever. But when she goes, hey, mommy, can I have this pizza? Is pizza good or bad? Or, hey, what's the serving? Can I have, is this okay to have? It leads you to go, well, you have protein on the plate, you're eating veggies. So of course we can have a piece of pizza in moderation, because this is what balance looks like. And you can reinforce these conversations with her versus just giving very much dogmatic, black and white, all or nothing kind of responses. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's incredible.
It's really cool. Yeah.
I didn't even know that. I just knew about like you just been out here kicking ass, taking names. I didn't even know you had that stuff going on. That's cool. Talk about some of the sides of things that you've been able to, like how you've been able to keep losing the weight. Like again, like what habits and frameworks or things that have kept you to go on your own and be successful even after coaching was over.
Yeah, I think I have my diabetes doctor really to kind of think to keep me on track of where I kind of came off from with coaching, mostly because she continues to drive home every time I go to see her. Are you getting that 90 to 120 grams of protein? I
Good.
really want to see you on that higher end of that. How are you doing with that? So she's even checking in with me and kind of keeping me accountable for that. But I really, my goal is just to get up and get moving. So whether that's getting the dog out and taking the dog for a walk, or taking my daughter out to the park and playing with her, not just sitting on the bench, playing baseball in the backyard, whatever it is. I really just kind of try to make sure you're getting that protein in mind, but then also making sure that I'm getting myself up and moving has been really helpful too.
I love that. I love that. For you, has there been any, I think you mentioned in one of our messages back and forth, you mentioned like you were keeping up with a lot of some of the mind stuff, like for you to help keep your relationship with food intact. And because like, again, a lot of people will do a bout with, again, usually not with us, but like in general with coaching, and they'll get their result, and then it's just like they stop doing the things that got them there. But you have kept on, and you have been even more successful after coaching has been over, which is just beautiful to watch from like afar. Because it's kind of, I view coaching almost like parenting, where like the goal is for your daughter to leave the nest and be successful without you. Like you don't want your daughter living at home until she's 80, because that probably means you did something wrong. It's the same thing here. Like, whereas we don't like rush anyone out the door with coaching, but coaching is at the end of the day supposed to be it is not a forever thing. You know what I mean? So, what are some of the other like frameworks or things that you've been doing to help that the people listening can kind of take home that has helped keep your relationship with food intact and continue losing weight and things like that?
Yeah, so I make sure to take a temperature on my emotions before I reach for that sweet, or before I reach for the chips or something that like would have been my comfort food previously. So it's really just kind of checking in and being like, okay, are you doing this because you're upset or you're anxious, or is it because you feel like you deserve a treat and your numbers allow you to do that today? So I really do keep a mindful check-in on myself and kind of take temperature of where I'm at before I reach for that thing. I also do a lot of journaling. I'm starting to get back into journaling. So really kind of making sure that whatever is going on in my mind, I'm getting down and out, and really just kind of keeping that managed as well, which has really kind of helped keep in check some of that food noise.
I love that so much. Like it's funny. People think their plan has to be this crazy, complicated, overarching thing. Whereas it's if you have the right frameworks in place, like I temperature check my emotions, I journal what I feel, I move a little bit more, I track my numbers. It's really not. It's kind of boring. It's really not this like, oh my gosh, life, like it can be a life altering thing is what we want it to be, but it should not be this giant mental overhaul where that's all you think about. Like for you, like, do you feel like all you think about every day is weight loss and numbers and things like that?
No, not at all. Not anymore. It's just become part of my mindset. So I don't even track my numbers that much anymore.
Let's go.
I'll spot check every now and then to make sure I'm kind of where I want to be with those. But it's just become such a part of what I do every day that, okay, well, let's check the protein on this just to make sure I'm getting close to what I should be each meal or each snack. Making sure, did I hit my 30-minute goal of exercise today, of getting up and moving? So just those little kind of mindset changes really just have become part of my daily routine that you just don't even think about it because it becomes so automatic.
Yeah. And that's the whole point is, like I've always said, is to change your personal reality. You have to change your personality. And as you've created these things, and it's just who you are now. It's like, oh, I brush my teeth every day. It's just it's just literally part of my routine, but of doing emotional check-ins, emotional temperature checks, journaling what you're feeling, being mindful. I think it just goes to show the work you've put in around making these handful of habits is just almost like part of who you are, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. It's been fun.
I guarantee it. Looking back, is it kind of crazy to look like if you contrast Leslie now versus Leslie at the beginning? Is it kind of weird to think about?
Yeah, because it almost feels like a 180-degree difference. Like, there's no way, like you said, it's been probably a couple years at this point. So to look back and think about how different things were to like where they are now, it's like, oh my Lanta, I can't believe like I'm that same person. Just feeling more confident and better about myself, so.
Love that. Well, it's the whole goal though, right? That's why I always call the program 180 Impact, is because everything should 180. But let me ask you this. What's kind of your mindset to maintaining your results though? Because like, again, that's been something that you've done very, very well. What's been like the mental kind of thought process behind maintaining this and never going back?
That I want to give my daughter a childhood that she remembers, but I also want to be active in her childhood. I don't want to sit on the sidelines and watch her enjoy being at the water park or watch her enjoy doing her horseback riding. Like, I want to be part of that and active. And if I would have continued down the road that I was on, there's no way that I ever would be able to do that, because I would be still battling my diabetes. It was really out of control at that point. My weight just kept going up. Yeah. So I think I would have been in a completely different place health-wise, even where I wouldn't be able to be as active in my daughter's life as I am now.
Sure. 100%. Well, and even like fast forward, like I'm sure you want to be that grandma. That's like, right. That's not like, oh, let's go to the rock wall, kids. Hey, I'll race you up the tree. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Have you noticed any other areas in your life this has kind of bled into? Like we've already talked about, it's made you more connected to your daughter. But is there any other areas that you've noticed this bled into? Like you're able to go out to dinner and be more present, or been able to handle other situations better because you're emotionally regulated? Has there been anything like that?
I think every aspect of life at this point. So it used to be like when my husband and I would go out on date night, oh, I can't have that. My diet doesn't allow it. Like when I was doing paleo, like super restrictive, you can only have a certain amount of things. And it made going out a nightmare. But now it's just like, okay, does this kind of fit what I've been doing? Do I feel okay eating this? Then, okay, I'm going to allow myself to do this.
Yeah.
So definitely in those aspects, but it's funny, even in my work life, like things have been different because, I work remotely. I work, out in the field mostly. So when I do see my teammates in person, they're like, well, I thought you were dieting. Like, why are you eating that piece of pizza? Or why are you having that donut? Because I've checked and I made sure that it's okay to do it. And I want the donut. I'm going to eat the donut.
It's part of my plan, bitch.
Right. And so it kind of leads into a conversation about that, though, too, with them, where you don't have to let, food dictate what you do. Like, you don't have to pack a salad every time we meet in Columbus for a meeting. Like, you can be part of the potluck or the pizza party. It's just being mindful about it and making sure it's balanced.
I love that. Was it hard, like thinking back was it hard to undo some of these belief systems? Like I think you mentioned, like whenever Stephen had you first start adding more calories, you're like, hang on. So were these things hard to initially wrap your head around almost?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think he would probably laugh to hear you say that, because I feel like I did push back quite a bit on him. Like, what do you mean I need to be eating 2,200 calories a day? I've been doing 17. And I feel like I did fight him a lot more than I probably should have.
That's what coaching's about. You're good.
But it was a mind-blowing thing for me, because at the time the doctor I had was saying, no, you need to eat less. And I'm like, I have this specialist telling me I need to do otherwise. But kind of really being like, okay, trust the process. Really kind of, but yeah, it was a really hard mind change for that. Like getting up and getting more active was really hard for me to do in the beginning.
What made it shift? Like where did it go from like, all this like mental like scariness, and then you're like, oh, maybe it's okay to eat more. Maybe I should. Oh, maybe I can have the donut. When did that start to change?
When I was at work, I was working at a hospital, and when I was walking up the stairs, my pants started to fall. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've actually lost some inches or something. Right. And noticing that like my clothes and stuff were fitting differently, and I wasn't getting out of breath going up and down the stairs at work anymore. It really kind of made me step back and go, oh snap, maybe they do know what they're talking about. And this really does work if you kind of trust the process with that.
I love that. That's incredible. That's so cool. Because those are my favorite kind of wins. Like, don't get me wrong, I love a good set of before and afters. But whenever like it sneaks up on you and you're like, huh, I guess my pants are looser, or you know what, I tied my shoes and my stomach wasn't in the way this time, or hey, I got hit on today. Like, did my mailman literally say that? You know what I mean? Because I think it's easy to get trapped in this like linear line of, is the scale moving? Are my inches dropping? Just going back to the formal, like the more formal old school metrics, which still have their place. But I think it's easy to overlook the fact of, oh, my hairdresser that said I look thinner today. Or, you know what, the dress that was super tight is tight, but not super tight. Or I didn't even think about my stomach when I was tying my shoes and it didn't get in the way. I think we miss out on a lot of those.
Yeah, the little wins. Like I had posted a before and after picture from June until January, I think is what it was. And just when it was from one of the pageants, one of my pageant girls had done well. And we had taken a picture together and I was looking at it. I was like, I look a lot different than I did. And so I like pulled up the picture from June and I'm like, I really do look a lot different. And so I'm like running through the house to my husband. I'm like, look at this. And he's like, yeah, you look great. And I'm like, well, you'd say that anyhow. But like being able to see that side by side really was like, oh, snap. Yeah. Like, you know, so the scale really, it was a big barrier for me in the beginning, but now it's just one of those, I think it was you who had said it, that it's just your gravitational pull. And I really, being through this now and kind of maintaining, it's like, yeah. And I find myself saying that to my coworkers at this point when they complain about the scale.
That's awesome.
You know,
looking back, because hindsight's always 20/20, right? So like looking back, was there any other like pivotal moments for you where it's like, oh, I can eat more and oh, I can do this and I can do that? Was there any other like big moments for you that goes, that shifted something?
Probably.
I know it's been a minute, but
yeah. But just kind of thinking back, I think it was all of those little things that you kind of talked about, like the clothing fitting different. Like when I first started, I was in a 3X top, size 20 pants. And like just the other day I had to go buy new jeans and it's like, I'm in a 14. I'm wearing a large at this point.
Wow.
Like this, like it's those little moments that don't seem so little, but it's something you don't really think about until it's happening to you. So I think it's those little moments along the way that happened, like where I went down a pant size or I went down a shirt size or this fits a little bit differently. I think those were really the pivotal, besides like my daughter imitating and, you know, the little comments from like the hairdresser and stuff like that.
Right. I love that. I think it's important to note that. I'm glad that you brought that up because I think those are the things people discount the most because they're perceived as small. It's like, oh, it's only an inch. Yeah, it's only like, okay, I guess my pants don't cut into my stomach quite as much. And we have a tendency, the ego specifically has a tendency to downplay those. But you stack 3 or 4 of those like, oh, this feels better. This is a little bit better. This is a little bit better. That's a big deal. That's when you go, honey, look how much different I look. You know what I mean? But I think it's easy to discount those. And it's one of the biggest ways sabotage sneaks in.
Yeah. And I think the other, especially recently, like the really big, like, wow, things have really kind of changed and moved was like my A1C is the lowest that it's ever been. My blood sugar and all of that, like it would have me not even pre-diabetic at this point. Like, wow. So having those big victories and just even your health really kind of just drives home, okay, this is why you're doing this. And it's really important to kind of maintain that. So
yeah, 100%. I mean, this way you can live. I mean, you've done both. You've not only added years to your life, but you've also added life to your years. I think people forget about both. Everyone's just like live longer, which is great. But you've done both. You know what I mean? Where you are on paper going to live longer now for your kids, for your grandkids. But then you also are all going out of your way to add life to your years where you're wanting to play with your kids. You're wanting to go on experiences. You're wanting to do these things that bring it all together.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. Is there anything else as far as like when it, cause like the whole concept behind this is I want people to understand like it's possible to have a transformation and then keep it. Are there any other pieces that we haven't talked about that have been pretty pivotal for you in keeping this going without having to have your foot, like you said, you've been able to dial tracking back. You're not obsessive anymore. Has there been any other pieces that's been making this a little bit easier to maintain?
I think we've kind of really hit it. But I think it's really kind of just reminding myself of my why, like why I'm doing this, why, why I did the hard work, 2 years ago up until now, to continue just doing the best that I can do. So
That's so good. I love that. One question I always like to ask any client that I interview, or previous client that on this, is because I think this is where a lot of people kind of get hung up too, is for you, when it came originally to like working with us, was there any hesitation when it came time to actually physically invest in yourself? And then if there was, how did you overcome that? Because I think a lot of people, they're like, I'm ready to go all in on me until like, if we were honest, until money's involved. And then it's like, ooh, maybe I don't think I'm good enough. Maybe I'm not worthy. Oh, maybe I should try this on my own one more time, where that's where a lot of times sabotage sneaks in. So for you, was there that initial like, that stings, and then how'd you overcome it?
So I think more for me, because I was really lucky to be a scholarship recipient with you guys.
That's right.
For me, it was my ego. My ego was in the way. I was really worried about working with a male coach, to be honest with you. Because I was afraid to like send in those pictures or to share what my weight was, because it was a very like uncomfortable spot for me. But once I kind of reminded myself, like, they believe in me enough to give me this opportunity to do this, that I kind of pushed past my ego and was like, well, if they believe in me enough, then I need to believe in myself about the same. And to be honest, like, if I had to do this process over again and invest my own personal money into myself, I would do it in a heartbeat, because it is 100% worth it, to do it, especially if you're going to go all in on it. So
yeah, I love that. I totally forgot that you said I've like slept like 2 years since then. Right. But I think you're right though. I think, I'm glad you brought up ego. I think a lot of people don't want to admit the reason they aren't getting to the help that they need or getting to where they want to be is the ego comes in. Like, I hear every day, I want to be able to prove to myself I'm doing this on my own. Well, that's completely, imagine saying, I don't want to go to a tutor because I want to prove to myself I can teach myself math. Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think a lot of times ego is one of the biggest sabotagers that gets in the way of us getting to where we want to be.
Yeah. And you got to think about it as, would you do brain surgery on yourself? Like, there's just times that you need that help, and it's okay to ask for help, but you've got to allow yourself that help.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, stepping back and being like, okay, if they're going to invest in me, then I need to invest in myself. They saw something that I don't see, but I hope to find it.
Yeah. When it comes to any time we've done scholarships, we don't just randomly pick those. It is like, I make multiple people go through them. And actually what's funny is I'll literally have like, all right, you go through these, you go through these, you go through these, and let's see if there's any crossover. And then it's like, oh, there's Leslie. So like, there we go. Even though to that point though, like one of the things is that, and it's a double-edged sword. Like when people do, like, let's say invest a lot of money in coaching to get to where they want to be, a big driver is like people pay for, they pay attention. But I've had people win scholarships before and get completely free rides of coaching, and they've pissed it away. I literally had someone sign up, and in 2 weeks they're like, I don't think I want this anymore. And I'm like, I ended up like giving it to someone else, but still, it's one of those things where if not having that sense of like, hey, I just invested X many thousands of dollars in this. What did get you going to make you go, oh, I don't want to waste this, I need to do this? Or what went on in your head to make you go, okay, I have to take this seriously?
So my sister invited me to the Zoom call that you guys had done. So I think with her backing and her encouragement too, like having somebody else there, kind of cheering you on and encouraging you to do that, that kind of thing. She was really my hype person.
Let's go.
In the beginning, where she was just like, they believe that you can do this. I think you can do this. So I think between like the encouragement of Coach Steven, my sister Ashley, you, like really, everybody kind of coming together, the Facebook groups, it really just kind of hyped me up enough to be like, okay, I can do this, or I'm at least going to give it my best shot to try to do.
I love it. And then look at you years later now, still kicking ass, taking names. I love it. Cool. This has been great. I'm so glad that you agreed to doing this, and it means a ton. I know it's kind of awkward and kind of vulnerable because like, hey, hundreds of thousands of people are going to hear my story. That's kind of, But like, again, I appreciate you being so willing to do this. So
Yeah, my pleasure.
I love it. Awesome. Well, I will talk to you very soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And we are back. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of Dieting from the Inside Out. I know if you stuck around for the whole thing, you got a lot of value out of this. And I'm hoping that as you listen to Leslie talk, light bulbs were going off and you go, okay, that made sense, that made sense, that made sense. But here's what you have to understand too. This information is only helpful if you apply it. There are a lot of people who listen to podcasts who are really good at absorbing, but not very good at implementing. And again, this information only works if you implement it to your life. Now, if you're listening to this and you don't know how to implement this stuff, or like kind of conceptually makes sense and logically makes sense, but you're feeling kind of at a loss in terms of, well, how do I apply that all to me? This is what coaching is for. And if you would like to have to see about the possibility, I should say, of getting what some of Leslie had and the kind of support that she had, so this way you can finally get off this yo-yo diet or roller coaster, you can always apply for coaching at the link in the description of this episode. Because at the end of the day, before we do anything with one-on-one coaching, I always have to make sure it's the right fit on both sides, and then we can go over details and discuss all the information and answer questions and all of that stuff. Because the first line of defense is, can we even help you? Is this even the right fit? Then we can go from there. So if you would like to see if the coaching would be a good fit for you like it was for Leslie, we should definitely have a chat and you can check out all that. Or not check out all that. You can hit the link below and then we can set up a call with me. That way we can dive into everything. Now, there's also a lot of other things in the description for you as well. If you're not quite ready for that, it's totally cool. I have a lot of other free resources, a lot of other guides, my coaching group, The Collective, which isn't quite as big of a jump to one-on-one coaching. So there's a lot of stuff to check out in the description. I think will help you a lot right now. Otherwise, that is it for today's episode. Let me know if you need anything, and I will see you all next week.